Welcome back, everybody. I think we managed to fight off the gremlins, thankfully, and with Connor's help, I believe. So yeah, we've actually got... Ah, hello, good morning, lady. We've got 2 lionesses here, and I think Senzo actually said he could see some more lionesses a little bit further back from the sleeping lady. Somewhere, there we go. Yeah, lady. So, them this morning. He said he could hear them somewhere north, beyond the camp. So we were going to try and do this pincer movement to try and find them, and I was expecting something, maybe tracks along Buffalo's Hook cut line. And he thought, well, take Gallego shortcut. And yeah, as I say, I was looking to the right and said, no, lion. So what a lovely surprise this morning to actually still have the lions in Djuma. And of course, Djuma means roar of the lion, doesn't it? A very lovely treat this morning. And as that sun starts to rise, the temperatures are going to start to increase, and these ladies might decide to get up and move. So I think we're going to stay with them and see if there is going to be any action from them. Are you picking up that bird that's calling? So if there's any sharp-eared viewers on board who could hear there was a very distinct bird calling. So we're going to play Who Sung It, which is a slight variation on Who Dung It. I don't know if you guys still play it, but if anybody knows that bird call this morning, hashtag Safari Live. See if you can ID the bird that was just calling. It was that one that was whistling. Oh, apparently my whistle's gone this morning. Hold on. Nope, still can't. Thought I'd wet my whistle, it didn't work. But hopefully you got the gist. Hi Chris, a barred owlet. Almost there Chris, but not quite. Oh, it is a dove. There might have been a dove in there, but it wasn't the one that was whistling. So there was a question yesterday about domestic cats and which large cat was the closest in terms of behaviour to a domestic cat. And I must admit I kind of go with the leopard because they are solitary. But when you see a lion sleeping like this, does that not remind you of your cat at home? All curled up on your lap. Lara Moore, an eagle. Again, you would definitely be forgiven for thinking that, because eagles do tend to have high-pitched whistles and calls like that, but it wasn't quite that. It was quite rapid. So I'm going to try and wet my whistle again and see if I can imitate it again. Preston saying a Scops owlet. Not quite. Scops owlet kind of goes brr, brr. Can hear the Cape turtle dove calling in the background now. Well done, Yvette. Brilliant. You just saved me from trying to do that impression. Vet, sorry. Beth. Well done, Beth. Pearl spotted owlet. It is indeed a pearl spotted owlet. Now, quite often during the winter you will find animals making use of the roads because they tend to hold the heat, especially tarmac roads. So if you're going to places like Kruger, it's usually a very good place to start on the tar looking for the animals. It's just that little bit warmer. Hi Charlie, I was wondering the same thing myself. Charlie wanting to know, have they eaten? It's difficult to tell from this angle. I'm not really seeing a big belly on them, so I'm not convinced, and I'm not picking up a smell. But the air is very still, so it is possible they've made a kill somewhere, and it's off in the bush. Or they've finished eating the carcass and they've moved on. But I'm not convinced, not by looking at the belly. It doesn't look big enough, because the cats actually work on a system of being full and empty. And when they're full, they really are full. It's sort of, big belly. And you should be able to see it when they're lying down like that. But yeah, I'm not convinced, but I'm not ruling it out either, because they are sleeping. So we're going to stay with these cats, because as we keep saying, it actually pays off sometimes to actually stay with cats, especially this time of the morning, because as that sun's going to rise, we might get some movement. So we're going to stay with them and monitor them, and we're going to see if Byron's actually managed to find anything else of interest for you this morning. They were starting to move. So this lady got up and gave us a beautiful stare, and then decided that actually she was quite comfortable going back to sleep. But I did have a good look at her belly, and it definitely doesn't look like they've eaten. Oh, we might have a bit of movement on the road here. We also saw the male put his head up, so we definitely know at least one of the boys are with them. So I'm thinking this will be the Nkuhuma pride. So there, you can just about make out the dark mane of the male. He's beautiful and dark. So if you joined us yesterday, I was talking about the female choice for the dark mane versus the light golden mane. And the length of the mane is also a sign of fitness. So if they have a very long mane, they can't actually lose a lot of temperature very easily. So it reduces their surface area, so their temperatures will actually increase in melanin in the mane. And no one's really too sure whether it's the amount of nutrients that the lion has in its body, or whether it's the level of testosterone. But there's one paper that seemed to think it was a combination. Oh, hello, lady. Let's see if she's going to get up and move. And so sometimes they do just like to assess what's going on, and judging by their bellies, they say they would be looking out for a meal. So they could be hearing something moving. The other female that's to our left is also looking in the same direction as the other female. So as I say, it could be the level of testosterone, and that would actually make the male a lot more competitive. That would make them a lot more aggressive and dominant, and that would be very attractive to the females, because then they can be sure that they're getting the best deal, if you like. They're getting the best genes to pass on to of the survival of the cubs. And they've actually found that the males with darker manes do tend to have a higher success rate when it comes to and they've also found that the short manes, the golden manes, are linked to injuries. So if they're injured, they're not going to be able to fight for the food around the carcass. They might sort of be at the back of the pack, if you like, when it comes to the offerings. If they're not in a big pride, if they're having to hunt for themselves, then they, again, might not be able to catch their own prey very easily, so they might be on smaller prey, not as nutritious prey, so that could affect their mane growth. So there is something to that, and as I say, with the golden mane, if it is lacking testosterone, so it's lacking the dark pigmentation that's controlled by the testosterone, so the melanin, then again, that could be a really good sign that then there's something not quite right. So the female's going to go, you know what, maybe my cubs aren't going to survive if I mate with you. So if the other darker maned male is around, then she's more likely to go for them. Apparently whatever caught their attention is not really worth them moving at this stage. So I don't think they're on completely empty at the moment, because then you'd find quite restless cats. They'll be wanting to find that next meal. But also it's the trade-off. You're going to be wasting energy moving around, so they conserve the energy, and that's why lions do sleep quite a lot as well, because they're conserving the energy for when they really do need it. So males, they conserve the energy for fighting off other males, because if they control their territory, excuse me, so if they can control the territory, and they can keep looking after the area where the females are going to be, the chance of their cubs surviving is greater, because if a new coalition is what it's called of males, just a group of males, if a new male group comes in and they fight and they chase out the original males, there is a very, very good potential that they'll kill any very small cubs, so that they can get the females ready to mate with them, so they're more likely to have offspring that will then go on and survive. So the lion world is quite dramatic and quite a rapid turnover quite often of territory. So if they can get more cubs out of a female pride before they move on, all the better, and that's why they do it. Hi Mac, good morning to you and welcome on board. I hope you're enjoying the lions. And Mac wants to know if the males have the same name as the pride. So they don't. So the pride is actually made up of the females and the cubs. Ooh, ooh. I'm sorry, that was just so funny. Getting scared by the mouse, and so did I. Oh, shame. So I don't know if you caught that, but the mouse literally ran straight into the side of the lioness, and she jumped a mile, as did I. But it just goes to show anything can happen in the bush. How amazing was that? I think that poor rodent might have just died a death. How shocking, running straight into the lion. The female to the left. kind of looking, what are you doing? Oh, Jill, that was brilliant. That's probably one of the funniest things I've seen in the bush. It was just that look of bewilderment on the female. So, yeah, so as I say, the female pride and the cubs, that's, so we have here the Nkuhumas, and I think that's the translation is actually brown ivory. And I think this pride would maybe have first been discovered underneath a brown ivory. And the males, because the males actually will go around as a male group, and they'll go and visit the prides, and males could have potentially around 4 prides within their defended area, their territory. So the males will get given a different name. So the males here are the Birmingham males. I'm going to need help with you guys, from you guys, to actually help me ID the individual lions within the pride. I know some of the viewers know these lions and the cats and the Sabi sands very, very well, so they can help me out if we do get a chance to see them nicely. But that's why you have the different names, so the pride and then the coalition, the male group. So I think we're going to see if we can maybe reposition ourselves now that she's moved off the road, see if we can get another view of them, maybe have a look at the male. And while we're doing that, Byron, I think, might have something for you. So enjoy. Yeah, Byron is so right. So this female's, I think she is a little bit restless. I think possibly she's wanting to potentially move. It's still a little bit nippy at the moment, so they might be waiting for the sun, maybe warm up a little bit. But we've managed to reposition ourselves so you can see the male a little bit better. And there's one of the young cubs there, I think. And then we've got another female just to the right. You can see in the middle of the screen now, you can see that white belly. And then we've just found there's a couple more just up ahead of us. I don't know, I don't think we're going to be able to see. There's an ear that's popped up just behind the tree, but might be in slightly the wrong position for, oh, there we go. Hi Justin, welcome on board this morning, and asking what a tired lioness would dream about. I think possibly chasing things. I have actually witnessed a male lion dreaming. It was the funniest thing. We were there with them about 2 o'clock in the morning, and the male was on his back. We were just enjoying the peaceful night with the stars, enjoying being with the lions, and all of a sudden we heard this. So we turned to look at the lions, and the lion feet, his back feet, were actually twitching. And I can pretty much guarantee he was doing exactly what your pet dog does at home with the whole, if you've ever seen them. And you know, if you see them, the movements, it looks like they are chasing an animal. So I'm convinced he was chasing something that night. And again, they were empty-bellied cats. So I think they were dreaming of being full again. Hi Red, if desperate, would a lion bother to hunt a mouse? If they were desperate, yes. They would have to be skin and bone, literally. But let's say if you're skin and bone, you are desperate. They may even eat insects if push comes to shove. But I've actually seen them surround a dwarf mongoose colony. They were actually on the termite mounds, and the dwarf mongoose were quite quiet, but they were watching the lions. Now if you see a leopard around a dwarf mongoose colony, the dwarf mongoose scream to say this leopard is there, keep a watch out, because we've actually seen the leopard hunting and killing dwarf mongoose. So they are actually on their diet list on maybe not a regular basis, but they are there. Whereas a lion, again, it's not really worth the effort unless they are desperate. So the dwarf mongoose didn't really need to worry about the lions being there. There was no threat. And that's all part and parcel of knowing when to give alarm calls, when not, and actually understanding the behaviour. So even though, yes, a predator was there and around, there was no threat. So no need to alarm. I've seen that with monkeys as well. If they've seen something but there's actually no threat, they won't give an alarm call. So it really does depend on the whole situation. And again, it's all those subtleties coming together to understand the bush and the environment. And we're actually getting that golden hour light on those lionesses, and it's starting to really bring that golden fur through. It's just lovely, just relaxing here in the African bush with a pride of lions, and just the muscles you can see just rippling through there. It's just the power of these animals, and to actually just be meters away from them and them just not caring about you at all. When, again, we're not on their list of things to eat in this vehicle. Now, if I was to get up and walk towards them now, they probably would go, what on earth is going on? But then if they were hungry enough, they might go, you know what, you're walking into us? Yeah, we might hunt you. But again, it would be something out the ordinary. And you just saw with that mouse, they can scare. Hi, Chitty Chatty Meg, welcome on board. And sounds like you're enjoying the lions this morning as well. And Chitty Chatty Meg would like to know, can a female get pregnant by more than one male? And it is possible, you can't rule it out, but generally speaking, in the coalition of males, they're going to be related. So they should be brothers from the same litter. So they would have grown up together, moved away, and stayed as a band of brothers, basically. Because they're all related, they don't really need to fight over the females, because they share the same genes. So whichever male the female decides to mate with, it's almost accepted. There's no rivalry. If a male gets to a female first and she does like him, then, as I say, same thing. There's no rivalry. It's quite an interesting concept, because you kind of think, oh, you know, the male would want to mate, but because they share the same genes, no matter which one's going to mate with her, it's their genes that are going to get passed on. So a male will then break away with the female, and they will go off away from the pride and the coalition and spend time together. They will mate many times, so it's roughly around every 15-20 minutes or so for 3 to 6 days. And it's actually, the male has to mate with the female to induce the egg to be able to be fertilised. So she doesn't have the eggs release and then need the male to fertilise them, as with many other mammals. So they actually have to mate to release the egg. And in that way, I suppose it's kind of ensuring that male is going to fertilise the eggs and be the father. If something happens during that time, then potentially a rival male could come in, but it's not something you really hear of happening. And as I say, that male is going to stick very close to the female. So if she moves, he moves, and he's almost on top of her. He almost mirrors her every move. It is quite funny, because she really does have him under the thumb. And as I say, if she's not wanting to mate, he will know about it. And he kind of keeps his distance, and he kind of checks, am I allowed to approach yet? So it's really interesting behaviour. But he makes sure that he sticks with her. In cheetah, though, unfortunately, because again they've actually crashed in numbers about 10,000 years ago, they've gone through this bottleneck, so they don't have a lot of variation in their genes. And the new research that's coming through suggests that the female cheetah actually do have more than one male that they mate with, almost to ensure that they do get different fathers, so that their offspring might have more of a chance of survival. Now that's it. It's a little bit wrong to say that they're making that conscious decision to do that, but it could be an adaptation of the species to ensure the survival. So what could have happened is maybe there was one or two females that had a genetic mutation that made them go for more than one male. That then got passed on because it was successful, because their offspring actually survived. So if their offspring survived and they had that gene, that behaviour would then come through. So then you'd get sort of more females within the population actually having that behaviour. Hopefully that makes sense. Oh, hopefully by his favourite leopard, Mvula. I'll keep my fingers crossed. But we're enjoying basking in the golden glow with these beautiful Nkuhuma females. And there has been a little bit of movement. The younger members of the pride have got up and I think gone off to toilet. As I say, the warmth of the sun's going to come through, and it is likely that the pride are going to get up and probably move off into the bush behind this sleeping female. Now, if you look carefully, you can look at the nose, and it can be quite difficult to age a lion just purely by the nose. So we look at lots of other things as well, but when lions and leopards are first born, they have this pink nose. And as they get older, it gets darker, so more melanin creeps into the nose. So once you get to quite an old lion, now an old lion could be about 10, 12 years old, they'll be nice and black. So it goes through different phases. So you can kind of look at the nose, you look at the ears as well, and the face, and see how much scarring they have, because young cubs obviously aren't going to have fought. Obviously they'll play fight, but they won't have been in a proper fight, so they won't really have any scars as such unless they've done something silly in their young years. But as the lions get older, they're going to have been in fights, they're going to be defending their territory, their core area, so they're going to come off with maybe rips in the ears, scratches on the face, all that sort of thing. So you look at that as well. And on leopards, you look at that, but then you also look at the flap of skin under the neck, which is known as a dewlap. And just as in humans, as we get older, that bit of skin starts to sag, and we also end up with a small dewlap under our neck. But I've never seen it on a lion. So I was just trying to see. I think I did see a little bit of pink on that female. So probably, I'm sure the viewers can help me out with the ages of these lionesses. But if she does have still a little pink on her nose, she could be around the 5-6 year old mark, give or take. Hi YouTuber, welcome on board this morning. And YouTuber would like to know how many hours a day a lion sleeps. Depends on how empty their bellies are. So if they're nice and full, and like I say, you can really see if they've just eaten, it almost looks like a balloon. It looks fit to burst. It looks so uncomfortable. But if they're like that, all they're going to want to do is to sleep it off. They're going to let it digest. So you can get them sleeping for 22 hours on that day. But then if they haven't eaten, they're going to be a bit more restless, and as I say, we have seen them moving around a little bit. So they are going to still conserve the energy because they don't want to be wasting it, but if they're hungry enough, they might start to go looking for food, especially if the cloud pulls in, and I am seeing quite a lot of cloud. So it will remain cool for them to go hunting. If it's in the heat of the day and you're seeing a lion trying to hunt, then you know it's really hungry, because obviously they don't want to be wasting energy and getting too warm in the heat of the day. So that's why they tend to hunt more at night, and obviously they've got the cover of darkness as well. But if they are hungry, then they're obviously not going to be sleeping as much, because again, it's that trade-off, conserving energy but also looking for food. So they need to make opportunities for themselves as well. Hi Roshni, welcome on board this morning. And Roshni wanting to know if only the dominant male will mate with pride members. And it can happen that the males, the females, a number of females within the pride could be ready to mate around the same time. So then you get the more dominant female will choose probably the most dominant male, again looking at the manes and whoever approaches her. If a second female comes into estrus, then the second most dominant male is more likely to mate with her, and it kind of goes down the line. But as I say, you might get one of the lower ranking males maybe slipping in or whatever, if they've somehow broken away from the coalition and picked up on the fact that the female's in estrus. He could potentially, but it could be that she also rejects him. It depends on who's around. So it's not always clear cut, but generally speaking, it will be the most dominant males mating, because again, they look attractive. Oh, another typical domestic cat pose there. It's this pose that really brings it home to me how closely related the cats are when they're grooming their nether regions, and that leg is it just looks so ungainly. They always look majestic until this. And again, you can see the black on the back of the ears, which is very important for communication as well. Hi, Gianna, and welcome on board this morning. Asking, do lions climb trees like they do in the Mara here in Djuma? And yes, we have had some of the females climb the trees. I've actually seen a male climb a tree in my old the reserve where I used to work in the Waterberg. So lions are capable of climbing trees, they just choose not to do it. There's not really much reason for them to do it. There was a wonderful sighting which unfortunately was actually playing out beyond our boundaries many years ago now, but there was a leopard, I think it was Yambili. Some of the older viewers might remember Yambili or Dan. It might have been him. But certainly one of the male leopards, he had a warthog and he'd taken it up into the tree, as leopards often do, to try and stop any other predators stealing their food. And a lioness obviously decided she was hungry enough to go after that warthog. So she climbed the tree, and the leopard actually stood sort of on the fork, if you like, and actually carried on hitting her on the head with his paw. And she was really determined to try and get to that warthog, but he was obviously very determined to keep it from her. And I think he actually won. But the other, obviously, downside to the lions is their big bodies. So for the female lions, you're looking at maybe about 130 kilos. Maybe, oh, there's the ground hornbills in flight. Oh, look at that. That's magic. Look at that. There's the rest of the family just following behind. Sorry. Oh, absolutely fantastic. And no, Craig, there we go. Look, oh, the sun's actually shining up that red face. Wow. Oh, Craig did actually say he thought he heard them. And I was struggling to hear them yesterday. That is absolutely amazing. I think he said there was 7 in the family. So I counted 6, I think. Oh, absolutely magic. Don't you just love the bush? And now I've just forgotten what I was talking about. Oh yes, the warthog. So the females can be about 130, maybe up to 160 kilos. So they're a lot larger than the leopard. Leopard, you're looking female maybe about 40 kilos, males maybe 60, sometimes up to 80 kilos, so quite a lot smaller. The big male lions, you're looking maybe 240 kilos, 260 kilos, something like that. So they could potentially break branches, and that is exactly what happened. Saw the big male climbing onto a branch. He thought it could hold his weight. No. Lying on the floor, absolutely stunned what just happened. I don't think he actually climbed a tree after that. So I think they learn pretty quickly. So if we do have any new viewers on board, I hope you're enjoying the lions and the wonderful surprises the bush has for us today. And if you would like to ask any questions, #SafariLive. Oh, hi John. I'm still looking for those penguins, John. So John, it's not cold enough for them. See, this is what's freaking me out. It's not cold enough. No polar bears either. Sorry about that. But great to hear you're on board, John. And yeah, I'm just loving it. Loving being in the bush. Excited to see what's going to happen next. Hi, Chitty Chatty Meg, asking if females come into estrus at the same time. And yes, they can do. Ooh. Thought we had one of the youngsters giving a little call there, but I think maybe he had a bit of a cough. Or she had a bit of a cough, should I say. So quite often that the females that are in the pride, just as we were saying about the males being litter mates and breaking away, the pride is made up of sisters, daughters, and obviously their offspring. So it is possible, because they're sisters, they're going to be cycling at the same time because they are related. And quite often what does happen in a household, as I'm sure many of you are aware, the women of the household can also cycle at the same time. Oh, and we do have a starling in the tree just opposite us as well. So we're just gonna, we actually found that there was 3 just behind the tree in front of us. So we're going to see if we can have a nice view of those for you again. But also it means that we're facing the rest of the pride, just in case they do get up and walk off. into the bush, as I suspect they're going to, because that's going to be quite thick bush, so I don't think we're going to be able to follow them too easily if they do decide to move. Do we have a nice view of them there for you? Hi Vicky, welcome on board. And we've got the younger members of the pride here, the young Nkuhumas, and you can see that pink nose I was telling you about. So, and lots of yawning, which tends to mean they're getting more oxygen into their bodies. So the one that was yawning is likely to get up first, possibly. Although they do lure you in all sense of security, and then they'll actually lie back down for a few minutes and then get back up again. And then decide, you know what, I'm actually going to get up. So yeah, but if a cat starts yawning, keep an eye on it. And the big male's put his head up as well, and he's looking straight into the sunlight. That's beautiful. Vicky wanting to know if I've had any interesting encounters with lions. Oh yes. Lots and lots. And I'll see what he's going to do. If he's going to decide to stand up or not. But yeah, this little one's still yawning. But yeah, I've had some really amazing encounters with lions, and probably the most memorable for me was during a training exercise. We were actually tracking the lions. We'd been going for about 2 or 3 hours with a wonderful guy called Agama, and he's probably one of the best trackers in South Africa. He is absolutely amazing. So I was still a very young guide back then, still learning about tracking. Hello! Good, how are you? Very good to see you. No problem. Is there anyone else? Oh, have they? Ah, I'm very well, thank you. Good to see you. Thank you. It's good to be back. Sorry, Andrew's just parked behind us, so I haven't seen Andrew. Obviously, the same as everybody else as well, but Andrew's always been helping us out throughout the years. So, yeah, as I say, we were looking for tracks, and we started going off into the bush, and the 2 trackers were up ahead. It was actually their exercise. I just went along just to see what it was all about. And Adrian says, oh, where did you see the tracks? So we were tracking the younger adults. And I said, no, mate, back on the road. We could not see anything in the bush. I was like, it just did not have the eyes at that stage. So the guys were up ahead of me, probably about 15 metres or so. And they were scratching around for tracks. And I'm thinking, you know what? It's now been 3 hours, we're never going to find these lions, and it was getting to be midday, so tracking's very difficult when the sun's high. And just as I'm thinking that, about 10-15 metres to my right, just between, yeah, probably about 2 o'clock from me, I hear this rustle. And just as I'm comprehending the rustle of the bush, a very low and if you can imagine the scene from The Lion King where Simba and Scar are going slow motion into that fight, that is exactly what came out of the bush. And it was slow motion in my mind. So if you can imagine Simba jumping out, mane swept back, that slow motion, and there stood one of the biggest lions in South Africa. He broke the scales at 300 kilos, so this was a big male. He stood there in front of us, And he was quite happy, and I tell you, to this day, I have no idea how those trackers got behind me. I was behind Adrian, they were then behind me. I did not see them move, but they were behind me. Making sure that they were actually behind the protective rifle, and I was starting to get a little bit more movement from these guys. So the male was quite happy. He told us, you know what, I don't want you here. We'd all grouped together, and Adrian was, no, don't, you know, sort of shouting, standing our ground. So he decides, no, he's going to walk away. So we decide, okay, we're going to walk away. But then he decided, you know what, I don't like you walking. So he turned around and charged us again. He walked away, we then walked away. But this time, somewhere over where the trackers had been looking for tracks, the female decided she was going to charge. And I'm going to leave you there because this is really, really cute. I'll carry on the story after. For whatever reason, the cub is taking a stick along. This is not fetch. And here comes a slightly older cub. So I'm thinking these sets of cubs are slightly different in age. So probably from two different females, which just goes to show the females coming into estrus roughly around the same time. So there's not much difference, it's like a month or so between them. So the females came into estrus around the same time. There we go. Heading off to the females at the back. So we're probably going to pull in a little bit further forward now that all members of the pride are on that side by the looks of it. And just see the group coming together, nuzzling each other, greeting each other after their snooze. So cubs are going, come on, get up, Mum. Mum's gone, no. 5 more minutes. Okay, you can see that black on the back of the ears, so when they're all hunting, they can see each other, see where each other is in the long grass, and it really does stick out. There we go. And the black tip on the tail, which the cubs will often follow Mum's black tip. Again, you can see that quite nicely as she's walking off into the thick bush. You can see how easy it is to follow that. And it's nice, it's a nice eye height for the very small cubs. So a follow me sign. So she's finding a little bit more shelter from the sun now. The sun's going to start getting a bit of heat. A little bit of play fighting there. Practicing the death grip. And who better to practice on than your sibling? And I think Byron's found you some birds to have a look at. So we're going to have a look at what they are. Around where the cubs were playing. So I think he was looking for any scent from the females. So they do that quite often. We do have a couple of vehicles. Oh, a couple of vehicles. Oh, he's actually playing with one of the cubs. So yeah, if we lose sight of the vehicles, just for now, but yeah, so while the vehicles are all moving around, I say the lines are actually going into thick bush, so I think it's going to be very difficult to actually follow them. Bye! So yeah, so to wrap up the story that I was telling you about, so we had the female that came into charge. So she came in from this side, the male came in from this side. We stood our ground again. We then tried to back away. That again triggered the female, so she started charging us. He charged us again. About the fourth time, so while they were doing that, as we tried to back away on the fourth time, to our right was where the young adults were. So we had lions somewhere to our right, we had the male there, we had the female there, we had very tall grass behind us. What were we going to do? Luckily we had a radio and we had a vehicle on standby not too far away. So when we called and we said where we were, the fifth time we had tried to extract ourselves, triggered the two to charge again, and probably about that fifth time, the male was about 7 meters from us. That's pretty intense, I can promise you that. And looking very, very regal with his mane. And he had a beautiful big black mane. He was such an impressive animal. And we used to call him Makula Madoda, the big boy, but then he became the Madala. And he really was. He was like the grandfather. Absolutely breathtaking. So we actually did get a vehicle that came between us and the lions to pick us up. And I said to Adrian, so if we didn't have the radio, how would we have got out of that? He just said, yeah, that would have been very interesting, wouldn't it? And Adrian still remembers that sighting. He must have had so many sightings with lions, but he actually retold that story to a friend of mine, and my friend had obviously heard it from me and went, you were out with Tara that day. So yeah, he still remembers that. It's a quite interesting one. So I think the lions have disappeared. So I think we're going to leave the area and take a drive up towards maybe Buffles Hook. So I'm going to leave this sighting. I've just got to let people know where they've gone, and then I'll get back to David and his question. All stations, the Ngala Fambring in a westerly direction from Galago shortcut, one station in Lock.